Once again, greetings and welcome to a description on how to do the random sentence lab. We'll cover the for loop, array of strings, the length of an array, the random number generator, conversion to uppercase for one or more characters, and string concatenation. So for string concatenation, that's like if you have a string and you want to add another string onto the end of an existing string, that's string concatenation. Here's a description of the project. The project is asking you to develop a program that will display 20 sentences constructed of random words containing an article, adjective, noun, verb, preposition, adjective, and a noun. An article are words like a, the, some. Adjectives are fast, slow, red, yellow, quick. Nouns, house, farm, dog, frog, whatever. Verbs are action words, run, walk. Prepositions, to, over, under, and around. Adjectives, fast, slow, again, and then another noun. You need to construct the sentence, so it starts off with an article, an adjective, a noun, and a verb, and then preposition, article, adjective, and finally a noun. The first word of the sentence must be capitalized, and you need to put a space between each word, and then a period or an exclamation mark at the end of the sentence. Your form should use either label or list box and have 3 buttons: start, clear, and exit. Here is a sample execution of the program. Some of these are pretty funny, some are pretty weird. A fast frog drives over a slow house. A fast car runs under some slow bus. How about this one? A yellow bus walks under a slow car. Well, some of these are pretty silly, but at least the computer has now had some smarts and it can make up some sentences, right? Well, we'll start off and describe the array of strings and variables. For the article, I have an array of strings. So I'll say dim, article, open close parentheses, as string equals open curly brace, and then each string will be enclosed in quotes. So here's a, the, and some. In this case, I have 3 strings in the array. The adjective has fast, slow, red, yellow, quick. The noun has house, farm, frog, car, etc. And then the verb has action words and prepositions. Now you can make your array have lots of words or just a few words. Now notice in here, some of the arrays only have a few words and other ones have more. The program's going to have to be smart enough to find out how many words are in each array. The nice thing about this is then you can add more words to the array without having to modify the program, because the program itself will figure out how many words are in each of the arrays. For variables, I'm only declaring 4. I have index. That's going to pick which position in the array we're going to choose a word from. For example, if the index is a 4, then I'll pick word that's in index position 4. I'll use a random number generator to pick the index. That way, I can choose a different word each time in the array. I'll use the variable I for my loop counter. Sentence is a string. This is where I'm going to build all the words into a sentence. And then once I have a full sentence built, I'll stick it into the label or into the list box. I need to create an object for a random number generator. I'm going to call my object rand. It says dim rand as new random. That way I can create random numbers. Let's look at the for loop. Well, even before I go into the for loop, I want to start my label as totally empty. If I call my label lblsentences.text, I can say lblsentences.text equals string.empty, or I could even say lblsentences.text equals quote quote with nothing in it. That way I have an empty string. I do that so that each time I click the start button, I'll end up with a brand new set of sentences displayed. That way I'm going to have a new set of 20 sentences each time I click the start button. Let's look at the for loop in detail. It says for I equals 1 to 20. So I'm going to go through this for loop 20 times and construct 20 sentences. At the end of the for loop, I'm going to put that sentence into my list box or onto my label. Then the next time I'll put another one, another one, another one, another one. So I'm going to end up with a total of 20 sentences. If you're using a list box, you need to say lst sentences.items.clear instead of setting the label to string.empty. And at the bottom of the for loop, instead of saying lbl sentences.text ampersand equals sentence, you can say lst sentences.items.add and then add the sentence into the list box. Let's look at how to create the sentence. Here I am back in the for loop for I equals 1 to 20. So part 1 equals the article. Index. Remember, that's going to figure out which one of the articles I'm going to pick. Index equals rand.next. Article.length. So article.length is going to tell me how many words or how many strings are in the array for articles. So I'm going to pick one of those. Then sentence equals article sub index. That's going to choose one of the articles and place it into my string for sentence. I need the first word of each sentence capitalized. Mid is going to pick one or more characters out of a string. Let's look at the right side first. It says UCase. It means uppercase. So UCase, mid sentence 1, 1, that says I want to use the sentence array, which is going to have the article, starting at position 1. Now, it's a little bit interesting here because strings are labeled from 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas arrays start at 0, but in Visual Basic, strings start at 1. I don't know why they did it that way, but they did. So here it is, sentence 1. I'm going to start position 1, and I only want one character. I'm going to convert the first character to uppercase, and then I'm going to store that back into the array for sentences for the first character. So now the first character is uppercase. Now I want to concatenate. Concatenate means add on to the end. So sentence ampersand equals quote space quote. That's going to put a space after my article. Now, if you look back up at the top where it said sentence equals article sub index, I'm going to start a brand new sentence right there because it's an equal. But if I have ampersand equal, I'm going to keep adding on to the end of things. So ampersand equal, that's my concatenation. Then create the rest of the sentence. You need to do the article and the adjective and the noun and the verb and the preposition and the adjective and the noun, but you have to put all the rest of the stuff in there. So right here I'm showing you the last one. Part 7, noun, followed by a period. So it says sentence ampersand equals noun, rand, dot, next, noun length. So that's, well, you know what, right here, I didn't even use that index. I just put all that stuff right inside. And then ampersand, quote, period, quote. So this is going to put a period onto the end. Sometimes you can accomplish the exact same result using multiple lines of code or combine everything into one line. In this example, let's assume we have already defined length and index as integers, sentence as a string, and noun as an array of strings. I can say count equals noun.length. Noun.length is going to be a 5 in this example because I have 5 strings in the array. Then I can say rand.next sub count, rand.next sub 5. This is going to return a random number between 0 and 4 and store it into index. Then I can say noun sub index. This is going to give me one of the nouns. Let's assume that I ended up with a 2 as my random number. Then I say noun sub 2. In this case, it's going to give me a frog. Sentence ampersand equals frog. The ampersand equals says append frog to the end of the sentence. At last I can say sentence ampersand equal quote period quote, which is going to concatenate or append the period to the end of the sentence. Now let's combine all 4 lines into one. Let's start off with the innermost parentheses first. Noun.length is going to be a 5 because there are 5 strings inside the array called noun. Rand.next sub 5 is going to give me a number somewhere between 0 and 4. Let's assume I get a 2. Then I have noun sub 2. In this case, it's frog. Then I'm going to have frog ampersand quote period quote. The ampersand is going to concatenate 2 strings together. The ampersand equal is going to add those 2 strings onto sentence. So the ampersand combines 2 strings. Ampersand equal is going to store it or concatenate it into the new string called sentence. If I'm using the label instead of a list box, I need to use VBCRLF to move down to the next line. That means carries your turn line feed. Back in the old teletype days, carries your turn moves you back over to the beginning and the line feed moves you down. If you don't do that VBCRLF, then all the sentences will be right after each other, which I guess is okay, but they won't start on a new line. Well, that's pretty much the project, so all you have to do is fill in all the rest. I showed you how to do the first article and the last noun and the period. Fill it up. Hey, have fun. Make up your own words too. You don't have to use my words, but just use the nouns in the place of the nouns, and the verbs for the verbs, and prepositions for the prepositions, and you should be fine and have a wonderful, you should have a wonderful thing so that you can have all sorts of words in there and sentences. Show your friends and say, look how smart my computer is.